Okay, so we had reached video number 13 after covering justice and values, which was video number 12. Now we're talking about the next step in humane perspective. So the first part of humanity or of humaneness is justice. And then the second part is order. So there's Nyaya, Dharma, Satya, justice, order, and truth. These are the three perspectives of humaneness. And we've already discussed what justice is. Now we were discussing what order or system or orderliness is, and how that is also built upon justice itself. So here this is what he was talking about. I'll just play from a little bit.
और व्याख्या प्रवेश होने की व्यवस्था देना ही शिक्षा संस्कार का मतलब है। हर व्यक्ति में, हर बच्चों में समझदारी का सूत्र और व्याख्या प्रवेश होने की व्यवस्था देना ही शिक्षा संस्कार का मतलब है।
So he was talking about what living in orderliness means for humans, and we had talked about how living in orderliness means to be participating. First, he said the first realm we covered was resolution and prosperity, which is the realm of living in justice. A resolved individual means an individual who knows how to do justice in each situation. And in doing that, they are also now then become capable of living in the family and producing the needs of the family more than the needs of the family, which is prosperity. Now, after that, that is living as a family human being. Now, beyond that is living in orderliness. Living in orderliness means to participate in justice. There are 5 domains that he listed out. First is to participate in the system of education and inculturation. Then to participate in the protection of justice. Then to participate in production, and to participate in exchange, and also to participate in health, which is the health of the family or of society at large. Yeah. So these are the 5 domains that a person who is participating in the larger order participates in. These are the 5 domains all human beings have to participate in at all levels. So this is true for even within the family, but also when you're participating outside of the family, it will be within these domains. And when we are participating in all 5 of these, that is what being in orderliness and being in order means for human beings. And so he was now talking about the education system. So this education system, the word he uses for it is always Shiksha Sanskar Vyavastha, never just Shiksha Vyavastha. Shiksha is education and Vyavastha is system, but Shiksha Sanskar Vyavastha is the education and inculturation system. There's a slight difference between the two and an interconnection between the two. But yeah, these go together. I won't go into it just now. So he's saying the whole purpose of the education and inculturation system is to imbue every individual with this understanding, the understanding on how to live with justice and to live in order, how to become an independent and autonomous and just human being. That is the purpose of the education system, education and inculturation system.
Yeah. प्रवेश होने की व्यवस्था देना ही शिक्षा संस्कार का मतलब है। ऐसे सार्थक शिक्षा के लिए आप हमको कटिबद्ध होना एक आवश्यकता ही है और हम कटिबद्ध ही हैं।
And for such a meaningful education system, it is a necessity for all of us, for you and for me, to dedicate ourselves to that. And I am already dedicated towards that goal.
हम इसके मुद्दे में और कुछ आपके सम्मुख रखना चाहते हैं।
And now I would like to present some more on this issue, present before you some more on this.
शिक्षा विधा में हम ये देखा है तो शिक्षा का मानवीकरण.
Sorry, to give some context also, why we started talking about the education system was because he was saying, how do we make this living in orderliness easily accessible to each human being on the planet? I mean, right now we find that we are not living in such orderliness. How does it become easily accessible to everyone? So the only way to get there is for each human being to understand the relevance of living in this way. And the only way to do that is if they understand existence and themselves and humane living. And that is the whole purpose of the education system. So first and foremost, there's the education system that will imbue every human being with understanding. And when they are imbued with understanding, then they naturally wish to participate in orderliness. Therefore, now we will talk at length about this.
शिक्षा विधा में हम ये देखा है तो शिक्षा का मानवीकरण.
So now, within the education system, we have seen that we need to move towards the humanization of education.
पहले आपको बताया था दर्शन, दर्शन के बाद विचार, विचार के बाद शास्त्र, शास्त्र के बाद योजना.
First, I had told you about darshan. Darshan is the overall worldview or the holistic view. After darshan comes the shastra or the scriptures, or I never find a good enough word for this, but he is taking us back to one of the earliest videos actually. Initially, he had talked about how when he went about sharing this philosophy with the world, he wrote the four darshans, then he wrote the Vad, and then he wrote the Shastra. So this is what he's referring back to again. So first came the worldview, overall worldview. Then came here he's putting Shastra first, the scriptures. Actually, how he defines it is the texts written in order to articulate the principle and mechanisms of how to achieve universal goals. So it's the principle and mechanism part of the worldview. That's the Shastra, the scripture. You could call it the theses or texts or something like that. After that comes the Vichar or the Vad, which is the thoughts or the ideology part. So the Shastra is a little more practical and the ideology is a little more theoretical in principles. And the worldview, the philosophy part of it is very overarching, is the overarching view of things, existential view of things. So first comes the philosophy or the worldview, then he says comes the scriptures, then comes the thought or the ideology.
के बाद विचार, विचार के बाद शास्त्र, शास्त्र के बाद योजना.
Oh, good. So he fixed that order because that's how he's written. So first the philosophy, then the ideology, and then the scripture. And after the scripture came the programs, the yojana, which was the
योजना में एक योजना बताया, जीवन विद्या योजना.
And in the programs, the first program that I told you about was the Jeevan Vidya program or the Jeevan education program, or educating people about the existence of the Jeevan.
जिसमें मनुष्य परिवार मानव होने के लिए काफी गुंजाइश है. तो
in which there is a lot of scope for humans to become family human beings. So Parivar Manav is a human being that is living at the level of the family human being.
तो इससे आदमी परिवार में एक व्यवस्था के रूप में जी सकता है.
So through this, that means through this Jeevan education program, an individual can live within the family.
यदि परिवार में यदि जीवन विद्या सटीक हाथ लगे, ये हर प्रौढ़ व्यक्ति, युवा व्यक्ति और वृद्ध व्यक्तियों के लिए ये योजना को तैयार किया.
That is, if one grasps this Jeevan education in a very exact manner, that is when any mature, any elderly or any youth, any mature person, anyone who is elderly or any youth can actually start to live in the family.
बच्चों के लिए शिक्षा व्यवस्था को तैयार किया।
For children, I prepared the education system. So the Jeevan education program, the Jeevan Vidya program, is for youth and above, youth, the adults and the elderly. Whereas for the children, the program is an educational program, the educational system program. The Jeevan Vidya program is not an educational system. These are just workshops. These are more like interventional things. Whereas for children, there's going to be a whole education system that is needed.
मानवीय शिक्षा के बारे में, शिक्षा का मानवीकरण कहा जा सकता है या मानवीय शिक्षा कहा जा सकता है।
So for the children, I prepared the educational program. It can be called the humanization of education, or you can call it the humane education.
सकता है, ऐसे शिक्षा के लिए भी प्रयत्न किया।
And for such education also, I have made some attempts or efforts.
ऐसे शिक्षा को हम एक स्कूल में प्रयोग किए।
So we have experimented with such education in a school.
यह 5वें वर्ष का अनुभव है।
This is our experience of its 5th year.
इसमें हम ये पाए तो इसमें इस प्रयोग में, और जो बहुत एक सामान्य एक उपलब्धि पाए।
In this experiment, we found something. We found a very simple or a very straightforward achievement.
तो वो स्कूल है, स्कूल चल रही है, तो बिजनौर जिले में गोविंदपुर नाम की एक स्थली है, वहाँ चल रहा है।
So this is a school which is running in a place called Govindpur in the district of Bijnor.
जिसमें जीवन विद्या के आधार पर शिक्षा का मानवीकरण करने गए और उसका प्रभाव क्या पड़ा।
In which we tried to go about humanizing education on the basis of the Jeevan education and to see what would be the effects of that.
उसको वहाँ
He is calling it an experiment. So
देखा गया। हमसे भी बहुत पहले इसको शिक्षा को स्थापित करने की पहले भी बाद में भी लोग बहुत सारे शिक्षाविद यही कहते रहे, बच्चों के ऊपर वातावरण का प्रभाव पड़ता है।
So this is what we observed over there. And even before we went there, and I'm sure after our experiment also, a lot of educational specialists and thinkers have always said that children are influenced by their environments.
ये मैं इसका प्रतिवाद करता रहा, यदि मेरे बड़ों के ऊपर भी पड़ता होगा, हाँ अवश्य पड़ता है।
And I have kept insisting against it. Prativad would be not as insisting against it, more like I have been countering this. Huh? Contesting it, yes. I have been contesting this also, and this probably means that he's been doing it for a while. That and what I have been contesting is that then there must be some effect on the adults as well. And they would reply, yes, of course, there is an influence on the adults.
तो मेरे ऊपर भी पड़ा होगा, अवश्य पड़ा होगा।
So then that influence would have affected, I would have received that influence as well. They say, yes, necessarily that would have happened.
मेरे ऊपर यदि पड़ा होगा तो हम मैं अनुसंधान कैसे कर पाए?
But if I was also a recipient of the same influence, then how was I capable of doing this discovery or this discovery of this new philosophy?
यदि वातावरण का प्रभाव से ही हम दबते, फिर बाद में हमको अनुसंधान कुछ करना नहीं था।
If it was only the influence of the environment that not pressurize, that if I were shaped me, Can't hear.
Shaped. S-H-A-P-E.
S-I,
S. Let me write it down.
yeah. I heard S-I-K-P-C. Shaped. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, if I was also shaped by my environment only, then I would have never needed to do this discovery. Yes, thank you.
आप जैसा रहते हो वैसे ही मुझको भी रहना था.
Then I would have also lived the same way as you have lived.
हम क्यों तुमसे भिन्न प्राणी हो गए, भिन्न जानवर हो गए या भिन्न मानव हो गए?
Why did I end up becoming a different sort of organism, different sort of animal, different sort of human from you?
उसका क्या आप बताएंगे? उस जगह में लोग चुप होते थे.
How will you answer that? To that question, people would go quiet. Used to go quiet.
उसका कोई उत्तर नहीं दे पाते थे, किंतु वे कोई संतुष्ट नहीं हुए.
They were never able to respond to this. They were never able to provide an answer, but then they were also not satisfied by this.
हमारे पास कोई प्रमाण नहीं रहा. क्या करते हैं हम? तो संयोग से एक स्कूल में हम शिक्षा का मानवीकरण करने का क्रियाकलाप.
And I had no evidence of this. What could I have done? So serendipitously, I got this opportunity to experiment with the humanization of education in this one school.
लगाए और जिसमें ये पाए गए तीसरे वर्ष तक ये पाए तो बच्चों का प्रभाव वातावरण पर होने लगे.
In which we started to find by the third, fourth year that the students began to influence their environment.
वातावरण का मतलब उनका गांव घर में बच्चों का प्रभाव डालने लगे. बच्चों में
By the environment, what I mean is that in the whole village, the students began to exert their influence was felt in the whole village.
में एक ऐसी अरमान उमंग आई तो जीवन के रूप में हर बच्चे अपने को पहचाना हुआ मानने लगे और वे में ऐसी अरमान बच्चों का प्रभाव डालने लगे. बच्चों में एक ऐसी अरमान उमंग आई तो जीवन के रूप में हर बच्चे अपने को पहचाना हुआ मानने लगे.
So a certain aspiration and hope emerged and a celebration emerged in the children that they started to consider themselves a Jeevan.
जीवन के रूप में हर बच्चे अपने को पहचाना हुआ मानने लगे और व्यवस्था में जीना अति आवश्यक है इस बात को भी स्वीकारने लगे.
So they began to believe that they recognize themselves as the Jeevan, and also they began to accept that living in orderliness is desirable, is necessary.
इसमें परिणति ये हुई बहुत सारे बच्चों ने जो शिक्षा के जो टीवी वगैरह में जो कुछ भी होता है उसके बारे में उनका मूल्यांकन होने लगी. उसमें सार कुछ नहीं है, इस ढंग से निस्सार है ये भी.
And with that, what started to happen was that the children began to evaluate all the things that were happening around them, also things that were being shown on television. And they began to conclude that all of this is nisar, means there is no meaning, it's meaningless, the stuff being shown on television. That is the conclusion they began to come to.
निकलने लगे. उसी के साथ साथ उनका घर परिवार में जो कुछ भी आदतें रही हैं उनके ऊपर प्रभाव पड़ा और गांव में एक परिवार दूसरे परिवार के साथ वैर भाव रही है.
Along with that, all the habits and situations that you find in their homes uh, were, sorry, let me just.
और गांव में एक परिवार दूसरे परिवार उनके ऊपर प्रभाव पड़ा.
So they began to influence those habits and situations within their families, and also in the village.
और गांव में एक परिवार दूसरे परिवार के साथ वैर भाव रही है, मुकदमाएं होती रही है, हर दिन मारपीट की नौबत आती रही है, गाली गलौच होती रही है, वो सब धीरे धीरे शमन हो गई.
And also within the village, between the different families that lived together in the village, there has been this sentiment of discord and there has been this discordant sentiment, and there have been various cases filed by one family against the other. There have been various fights that would erupt from time to time. There have been a lot of abusive language used by people for one another in the village. And all of those also gradually began to reduce.
अभी उन गांवों में तो विरले कभी झड़प हो जाए तो हम नहीं जानता हूं, किंतु हमको जितना जानकारी है उसके अनुसार वहां झगड़ा झांसा नहीं है.
Now in those villages, I mean, if some rare event of conflict emerges, then I might not be aware of, that is different. But generally speaking, now in these villages, there are no fights or conflicts that emerge anymore.
ये बात ये प्रभाव पड़ी.
This is something, this is the influence that was observed.
और इसी को हम कहते हैं वातावरण पर बच्चों का प्रभाव पड़ा.
And this is what I call that the children influenced their environment. The habits he was talking about at home, he's talking about drinking alcohol and other sorts of intoxication. So that also went down in the village. I don't know where he mentions this, somewhere in the book or otherwise I've heard. That is what he was referring to.
ये प्रभाव को देख करके हम सबको काफी एक यकीन हुई ये शिक्षा में कोई दमखम है.
And upon observing this influence, we all gained some confidence that there is some strength, there is some strength in this education system.
उस दमखम के साथ साथ और अभी मध्य प्रदेश सरकार के साथ ये प्रस्ताव रखे हैं शिक्षा का मानवीकरण का 5 वर्षीय एक सिलेबस, एक पाठ्यक्रम प्रस्तुत किया.
And based on this strength, we have recently spoken with the Madhya Pradesh government and proposed to develop a syllabus for a 5-year-long syllabus for the primary school on the humanization of education.
उसका जांच पड़ताल सरकारी तौर पर हो रही है. शायद कुछ दिनों बाद ये इसकी आवश्यकता बन जाए.
And this is being discussed and examined at the governmental level, and slowly, eventually, hopefully, this necessity is the necessity for this is recognized and develops in them as well.
ये भी एक हो सकता है. ऐसा स्थिति में हम आ गए.
This is also something which is possible. This is the state that we have reached. This he's speaking in 1997, 1999, something, one of the two. And then this was carried forward by the Chhattisgarh government, and those CBMS books were written. I think both of you, I think Pashwadidi and Prachi at least have seen that, no? The books that were written for classes 1 to 5.
तो ये शिक्षा का मानवीकरण
available?
Yeah, I can share it with you also. They're all, it's a thin booklet. Yeah, and
Hard copies or just
hard copy is also available, and soft copy is also available.
Hindi?
Now it's been translated also. The Hindi has been translated to English also, and exercises have been added and things like that. So if you want, I'll share it.
I would like to buy the hard copy. Gift them. Okay.
Okay. I'll have to find the link or the phone number to do that.
Whenever.
I'll let you know.
के पक्ष में आपको बताया। तो ये शिक्षा का मानवीकरण के पक्ष में आपको बताया।
So here I have told you in favor of the humanization of education.
मानवीकरण करने के लिए आपको ये अभी बताया था, तो विज्ञान में हम चैतन्य पक्ष का अध्ययन कराएंगे।
Right. So in order to humanize education, I had just told you that we will, in science, we must add a study of the conscious aspect. So just in the last session, he had gone over the different subjects that need to be complemented in different ways. You know, and I think he might cover those again. So science, which has been the study of the material world, he's saying science needs to be complemented with the study also of the conscious aspect. The conscious Jeevan also needs to be studied within science.
शिक्षा का मानवीकरण में, मानवीय शिक्षा में चैतन्य प्रकृति का अध्ययन कराएंगे।
For the humanization of education, we will also provide for the study of conscious nature. There is nature which is insentient and then there is sentient nature. So that must also be studied.
चैतन्य प्रकृति का मतलब भी होता है जीवन। जीवन अपने में प्रकृति है। जीवन प्रकृति को अध्ययन कराएंगे। जीवन जागृति को अध्ययन कराएंगे।
So, and conscious nature itself means the Jeevan. Jeevan is also a part of nature. So we must provide for the study of the Jeevan and to provide for the study of the awakening of the Jeevan.
उसका प्रयोजन अध्ययन कराएंगे। रासायनिक भौतिक माने रचना विरचना को अनुभव माने अध्ययन कराएंगे। रासायनिक भौतिक रचना विरचना के साथ तो मनुष्य के लिए क्या पूरकता है और मनुष्य इन संसार के लिए कितना पूरक है, उसको सफल बनाने के लिए क्या करना होगा, ये सब अध्ययन कराएंगे।
We will provide for the study of the purpose of the Jeevan. We will also provide for the study of the physical, chemical compositions of existence, and also provide for the study of the purpose of these physical, chemical compositions for humans. I mean, not the purpose, the complementariness that physical, chemical nature plays for human beings, and also provide for the study of how human beings can be complementary to the physical, chemical nature.
पूरक है, उसको सफल बनाने के लिए क्या,
and also what all is necessary to make this complementarity successful. We will provide for the study of all of this.
क्या करना होगा, ये सब अध्ययन कराएंगे। ये सब हमारा इसमें शिक्षा प्रणाली में लगी हुई मूल तत्व हैं।
So all of these are the basic elements of what needs to be incorporated in the educational process.
तो इस विधि से शिक्षा को समृद्ध करने के लिए कह रहे हैं।
So in this way, it is in this way that I am talking about. Samrid karna is a very interesting way of putting it. Making the educational content prosperous is essentially what he's saying. So right now it's lacking, but by adding these, the content of education prospers, becomes abundant.
तो उसके बाद हम जो इसमें दर्शन शास्त्र में क्रिया पक्ष का अध्ययन करेंगे।
Then after this, within philosophy, which is called Darshan Shastra, which is basically, if you were to translate it literally, it means the philosophical scriptures. When those are studied, we will complement that with
दर्शन शास्त्र में क्रिया पक्ष का अध्ययन करेंगे। क्रिया पक्ष का मतलब यही है, मनुष्य समझदारी के लिए दर्शन है, समझदारी का प्रमाण होना।
So with this philosophical literature, we will also provide for the study of the activity aspect. Now, the activity aspect is nothing but the fact that I will have to listen to this again.
मनुष्य समझदारी के लिए दर्शन है, समझदारी का प्रमाण होना।
So, the activity aspect is nothing but the fact that for human understanding, we have philosophy, that is, we have darshan, but then there also has to be the evidence of that understanding. So that evidence aspect is the activity aspect.
यही क्रिया पक्ष है, प्रमाण ही क्रिया पक्ष है।
So evidence itself is the activity aspect.
वर्तमान में प्रमाण होने की आवश्यकता हर मनुष्य में बनाई है।
The need for evidence in the present is already present in each human being. So all of us need evidence in each moment.
आप भी प्रमाणित होना चाहते हैं, मैं भी प्रमाणित होना चाहता हूँ, और हर नर नारी प्रमाणित होना चाहते हैं।
You also want to be evidenced. I also want to be evidenced, and every human being wishes to be evidenced. Every man,
हर बच्चे बड़े
woman,
बुजुर्ग प्रमाणित होना चाहते हैं। तो इसका मतलब यह हुआ हर मानव अपने पहचान को बनाए रखने के लिए वर्तमान में होते हैं। ये बात है।
So every child, adult, and elderly wishes to be evidenced, and what this means is that every human being wishes to
बुजुर्ग प्रमाणित होना चाहते हैं। तो इसका मतलब यह हुआ हर मानव अपने पहचान को बनाए रखने के लिए वर्तमान में होते हैं। ये बात ऐसा बन।
हाँ, which means that every human being wishes to establish their identity in the present. That is what he means by evidencing. What to evidence your understanding means to establish your identity as someone who is resolved in your vicinity in the present. That is the evidence of understanding. And all of us wish to be able to establish our identity as someone who is knowledgeable, someone who is resolved.
तो इसे समझदारी के साथ हम वर्तमान में परिचय को, हमारा पहचान को बनाता हूँ, तो सहअस्तित्व भी बनता है। सहअस्तित्व ही पहचानने में आता है, एक दूसरे के साथ संबंध ही पहचानने में आता है।
So when it is with understanding that I go about establishing my identity in the present, that then it is only coexistence that gets established. It is coexistence itself then that gets established. It is our relationship that gets recognized, a coexistence that gets recognized, our relationship that gets recognized.
सहअस्तित्व ही पहचानने में आता है, एक दूसरे के साथ संबंध ही पहचानने में आता है, मूल्यों को निर्वाह करना ही बनता है, और मूल्यांकन में उभय तृप्ति होना बनता है।
So upon understanding, when I go about establishing my identity, then what I end up recognizing is that from my understanding is that there is only coexistence. So there is nothing but for me to do but to recognize our relationship, nothing for me to do but to recognize and then live out the values inherent in that relationship, and then to evaluate and be mutually fulfilled. So he's saying that our evidence of our understanding is living in justice, living with justice. Living in justice sounds like injustice, which is the opposite.
ये स्वाभाविक क्रियाकलाप है।
So this is a natural process. So he's saying when we're studying philosophical literature, we also have to study the aspect of evidence, because that aspect of evidence is nothing but the aspect of living with justice. That living with justice is what complements a study of philosophical literature. They cannot be separated. This is very important.
इन तथ्यों के साथ हम आगे बढ़ते हैं व्यवस्था में जीने के लिए। व्यवस्था एक शाश्वत तथ्य है।
And with these facts, we move forward to live in in the order. Now, order is an eternal fact of existence. Is it contagious? Maybe.
शाश्वत तथ्य इस अर्थ में है, इस तथ्य शाश्वत तथ्य किस अर्थ में है? इस अर्थ में है कि अस्तित्व में हम ये तथ्य को देखा है, प्रत्येक एक अपनेत्व सहित व्यवस्था है।
Now, it is an eternal fact in the sense that I have seen this as a fact of existence, that every single unit is a system in itself with its uniqueness.
तो त्वासहित व्यवस्था को हमने ये देखा है कि बेल का झाड़ होता है, उसमें बेलत्व समाई रहती है।
So he's saying, I have observed this fact of existence, that every unit, all units of existence are orders in themselves with its uniqueness. And that's what he calls Svasahit Vyavastha, orderly with their uniqueness. So he says, everything is orderly in its uniqueness, such as if you look at a bale tree, or it's a fruit. Every bale tree has its own baleness. Let's call it mango, since it's more familiar to a lot of English listeners. Okay, let's look at a mango tree. Every mango tree has its own mango-ness, which is unique to it.
कैसे? बेल को लंदन में, बेल वृक्ष को लंदन में देख लीजिए, उसका गुणधर्म, भारत में देखिए उसका गुणधर्म और गुणधर्म, जलवायु के अनुसार जितना परिवर्तन होना होगा, किंतु भौगोलिक स्थिति के अनुसार ये बेल का झाड़, बेल का जो धर्म है, आचरण है, उसको बनाए रखता है।
How is there a mango-ness? Well, if you look at it, if you look at a mango tree in London, and now he's talking about bale, I'm talking about mangoes. I don't know if there are mangoes in London. But if you look at a mango tree in London, if you look at it in India, if you look at it somewhere else, whatever difference there has to arise from the environmental factors, that will arise, but there will still be an identifiable mango-ness to it, an identifiable mango property and essential nature. Dharma, actually, he's saying. So the properties and dharma of a mango tree in London, compare that with the properties and dharma of a mango tree in India versus the properties and dharma of a mango tree anywhere else on the planet, we will find that besides the minor differences from the difference in environmental factors, the basic mango-ness, its properties and its conduct of mango-ness remains the same.
पीपल का झाड़ अपना आचरण को बनाए रखता है। क्या आचरण? बीज वृक्ष न्याय। बीज से वृक्ष होता है तो पीपल का झाड़ ही होगी, और वृक्ष में यदि बीज होगा तब पीपल का बीज आएगा।
Similarly, a peepal tree also maintains its conduct. What is its conduct? It functions by the justice of seed tree. The seed tree justice is a little term he's coined. Bij Vriksh Nyay. The seed tree justice is that when there is a peepal tree, the seed that forms will be a peepal tree, it will be the seed for another peepal tree only. And whenever there is a peepal tree seed, when it germinates, the tree that will form will also be the peepal tree itself, nothing else. So that is the seed tree justice principle. That is its definite conduct.
इस विधि से पूरा वनस्पति संसार अपने अपने त्वा सहित व्यवस्था के रूप में अपने को प्रमाणित कर रखे हैं, आचरण के रूप में।
In this way, the entire plant world has evidenced itself in its conduct.
के रूप में अपने को प्रमाणित कर रखे हैं, आचरण के रूप में, व्यवस्था के रूप में अपने को प्रमाणित कर रखे हैं।
In this way, the entire plant world has evidenced itself as an order in the form of its conduct. Like you can rely on the fact that the seed of a plant will lead to the same type of plant, and the plant will lead to the same seed.
आचरण के रूप में इनमें जो देश विदेश कहीं भी आदमी हैं, जो किसी एक वनस्पति के साथ यदि दोनों समझे हों, एक दूसरे के साथ कोई शंका नहीं करते।
In this, no matter if you come from two different countries, if they both understand the same plant, they will both agree on it. There will be no confusions or doubts. That means even if you're from very different cultural backgrounds, you can study the same plant world and come to the same conclusions and have no disagreements with one another on that.
समझते नहीं है तो कोई शंका करने की बात भी नहीं है, और समझ गए हैं तो कोई शंका नहीं करते हैं।
If they haven't understood the plant, then well, there is nothing to doubt about. But if they have understood the plants, then no doubts arise.
उसी प्रकार गाय को आप कहीं भी ले जाइए, गाय का आचरण वत नहीं है।
In the same way, a cow. No matter where you take a cow, the cow's conduct remains the same.
लंदन में भी वत नहीं है, भारत में भी वत नहीं है, अमेरिका में भी वत नहीं है।
In London, it will remain the same. It will be the same in India. It will be the same in the US.
और कहीं भी वत नहीं है, पूरा
and also anywhere else, anywhere on this planet.
धरती की छाती पर कहीं भी गाय रहेगी, गाय का आचरण वही है। उसी पर गधा, घोड़ा, बिल्ली, कुत्ता, ये भी अपने आचरणों में वो बहुत सुदृढ़ है।
No matter where you take this on the face of the planet, the conduct of the cow remains the same. In the same way, a donkey, a horse, any other animal, they are all very definite and fixed in their conducts.
इसी का नाम है त्वासहित व्यवस्था।
And this is what is called orderliness with its uniqueness. Because orderliness refers to the definiteness, and uniqueness is that particular flavor that we recognize as, oh, that's mango, oh, that's a peepal tree, oh, that's a donkey, that's a cow. So it's very unique. It's distinct, but also definite.
निश्चित आचरण संपन्न कार्यकलाप।
So this is what is called uniqueness with orderliness. Activities comprising of definite conduct. That's how he says it.
निश्चित आचरण इन सब में निश्चित है।
Definite conduct, it's definite for all of them.
इसी क्रम में झाड़ वृक्षों में भी उनका आचरण बिल्कुल सुस्पष्ट है। इसी विधि से लोहा, धातु, सभी धातुएं अपने अपने आचरण में पक्के हैं।
In this way, in the same way, all the plants and shrubs have a definite conduct. And the same way, whether it's iron or any other mineral, they also have very definite conducts. They are also very pakka, fixed in their conduct.
अपने अपने प्रजाति के आधार पर पक्के हैं, तो मणि अपने अपने स्वरूप के आधार पर आचरण पक्के हैं। सभी प्रकार की मृत पाषाण, मणि, धातु और सभी अपने अपने आचरण में जब स्थिर हैं, मानव को क्या रोग हो गया, आप सोच लो।
Similarly, mud in its different varieties is fixed, or crystals of various sorts in their different varieties is very, I find this expression very funny. Crystals also have their definite properties based on their particular variety. And similarly, all the different types of soils, different types of crystals, different types of minerals, mrid, pashan, different types of rocks. All of these elements of the material world, all the units of the plant world, all the units of the animal, when they are all so fixed and definite in all of their conducts, now you can think for yourself what disease have human beings been afflicted by.
मानव जाति को क्या रोग हो गया, आप ही सोच लो.
What is this disease that humankind has been afflicted with?
तो अभी तक तो मानव व्यवस्था में जी नहीं पाया है.
So up till now, human beings have been unable to live in order.
ये तो बात पक्का है. भय में जीता है या प्रलोभन में जीता है.
That is definite. Either he lives in fear or in greed, temptation.
भय और प्रलोभन दोनों व्यवस्था का धुरी नहीं है.
And neither fear nor temptation, greed, are the axis of orderliness.
दोनों में ऐसा संगल नहीं है जो व्यवस्था को समीकरण कर दे. अभी तक तो
Neither have what it takes to bring about an order around itself.
समीकरण नहीं हुआ. ये तो में ऐसा संगल नहीं है जो व्यवस्था को समीकरण कर दे. अभी तक तो समीकरण नहीं हुआ. ये तो गवाही बैठा ही है. ये देख लीजिए आप.
And up till now, so there has been no order that has been established. That is a testimony waiting for us to witness it. This is something you can see for yourself.
हम कितने अच्छे ढंग से जी आए हैं, आप ही सोच लीजिए.
So now think about how well we have been living up till now. So this is an interesting point. I think it's already past 8, so I'll pause. But it's a very interesting, I think, overview of existence that he has given. There is orderliness. Orderliness is a fact of existence. Every other order of nature is orderly, that it has definite conduct and it has uniqueness. So it has a distinct contribution also. And you can see that in everything except for human beings. So it's worth thinking about why aren't we able to live that way? And it's obviously a fact. So we can also possibly live in that way because everything else does. So there must be a provision for us also to live that way. So this is something worth thinking about. And maybe we can carry on from this tomorrow. And anything that you'd like to talk about or share before we close?
A little elaboration on evidence. Like how they said at one point, you clarified it to some extent, yeah, that you all want the evidence as well. What exactly does that mean? Exactly what it is.
Right. So in this, for this, maybe we have to contrast it with how it's been thought about conventionally. So when people study philosophy conventionally, it is seen that you become very knowledgeable or you become very wise as long as you speak in a certain way, as long as you can intellectualize things a certain way. But it's all happening in your head and in your thoughts and in your words. But what he's saying is that is no evidence of having understood anything. Because even when we're studying philosophy, what are we really studying and why are we studying it? Philosophy aims to study the nature of existence and the nature of ourselves so that we can live in this existence in a happy and fulfilling way. Why else are we studying philosophy, right? These questions are fundamental indeed, but we are going about pursuing them because they matter to our living. They are relevant to our life. And so having understood them should also reflect in our life. It should reflect in our living. If we say that, oh, we've studied philosophy and we've understood it. Right now, or conventionally, or for hundreds and thousands of years, that has not been the measure of understanding philosophy. If you think about people who are considered very intellectual or very wise, it is not their day-to-day living that is scrutinized. It is their logic, it is their speeches, it is their articulation of thought and ideas that is evaluated and concluded to be very wise, rather than their living in and how they deal with things in their everyday situations, whether or not they're able to fulfill the people, the need for justice in the people that they're living among. Because that is the final evidence of having understood something. If I want to understand how to, if I say that I've understood plants, then I should be able to live well with plants, right? Then I should be able to grow plants very well. That will be the evidence that I've understood plants. So if I'm saying that I've understood existence very well, then the evidence should be that I should be able to live and exist in an orderly, fulfilling way. So the evidence of philosophy always has to be living, in living. And what in living really? When you understand existence, because existence is coexistence, because coexistence is togetherness and mutual complementarity. Therefore, when you understand this mutual complementarity, the evidence that you've understood it would mean that you're able to live with mutual complementarity in your day-to-day relationships and interactions. So that itself is justice. So an understanding of coexistence means a living of coexistence, and a living of coexistence is a living of mutual fulfillment, mutual complementarity, mutual care, and justice, basically.
This was a little, okay, this I understood, this I am aware from all these classes. But something you said today, some sentence came up, every man and woman also evidence.
Yeah.
Evidence what? Because some people are, let's say, not on this track, they are on some other track. So they want evidence what?
Yeah. So no matter what stage of life you are, even if you ask a child actually, do you think you're a good person, or do you think you are knowledgeable? Ki, acha, aap samajhdar ho ki nahi? Even a child who is innocent actually will say, yes, I understand things. And he wants to be recognized as someone who understands.
Where does evidence word fit in?
So evidence over there means to establish their identity as someone who is understood. So that is the evidence that everyone is seeking. You also want to be established in your vicinity as someone who is, understood, someone who is resolved, a good person, and a thoughtful person. And so do I. So does every other person, no matter what wrongs and mistakes we may be doing. Like all of these blunders that we do, everyone still feels somewhere in themselves, they feel justified in doing it. Somewhere they feel that people should also recognize that this is my reasons for doing it. I am a reasonable person. That is the evidence that they want to establish. Anything else? Okay. All right, then. See you tomorrow. We'll continue from here.
Okay, good night.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you.